The weekend we booked the lakefront yurt, late July heat had already bleached the sky above Blue Heron Lake. I told myself the air-conditioned escape would be worth the 4-hour drive, but the Real Draw sat beside me in the passenger seat, Caleb, wiry-armed, sun-freckled, and blissfully unaware that every sideways smile he threw me made my pulse jump. In back, my best friend Lauren guarded a crate of groceries while her boyfriend Marcus searched in vain for cell service. We rattled down the last gravel spur and saw it, 4 canvas tents on raised decks, a shiny bathhouse, and oddly, a Victorian farmhouse set deep under birches. A sign read Whitaker Lakeside Glamping. Mr. Whitaker met us at the gate. Mid-40s, pencil mustache, suspenders over a crisp linen shirt, he actually bowed, then produced 4 old skeleton keys on leather cords. "Each fits your tent," he said, pressing them into our palms. His fingers were strangely cold. "The lake is finest at dusk, but keep to the marked paths after dark. The woods can be disorienting." Something in the pause after disorienting made my shoulders tense, but Caleb just grinned. "Copy that. No drunken skinny dips without a flashlight." Whitaker's smile twitched. "Precisely." He tipped his hat toward the farmhouse. "I'm there if you need me. Knock once. Only once." Then he retreated, shoes whisper quiet on the grass. Lauren let out a low whistle. Well, Quirky host unlocked. She wasn't wrong. The tents held real beds, braided rugs, and little pot-bellied stoves waiting for autumn. Wind off the water carried pine and something sweeter I couldn't place. While the others unpacked, I wandered to the dock. The lake lay flat as glass, reflecting a sky turning orange. Caleb joined me, shoulder brushing mine. "Worth the drive?" he asked. "Asked me after a swim and a beer," I said, striving for casual even as sparks raced along my skin where we touched. Behind us the farmhouse door creaked shut though no breeze stirred. Old wood, I told myself. Houses settle. Yet the hairs on my neck lifted, as if they'd caught a warning I'd missed. I made myself exhale, shook it off, and followed Caleb back to the tents where Lauren was untangling fairy lights like she was defusing a bomb. We strung them along the deck railing, cracked beers, and watched the shoreline bruise purple. Marcus got the jet boil roaring for pasta while Caleb and I hauled the cooler down to the dock. "You okay?" he asked quietly as we walked. "You got that look." "What look?" "That I just saw a ghost but I'm pretending it was a raccoon look." I snorted. "Pretty specific. I've seen a lot of raccoons." It should have been nothing, just a dumb joke in the soft heat, but it lodged warm under my ribs. "House creaked," I admitted. "That's all." We swam after dinner, the water silken and surprisingly warm, the lake bed a slow slope of pebbles that clicked under our feet. Fireflies stitched green stitches in the reeds. From somewhere in the trees, a thin metallic tapping echoed, irregular, like someone hammering a nail, stopping, then starting again. Caleb cocked his head. "Woodpecker? On a metal pole?" We listened until it stopped. When we climbed back up the dock, a lantern glowed on the farmhouse porch. Mr. Whitaker stood behind the screen door, motionless, like he'd been waiting for us to notice him. He lifted 2 fingers in a formal little salute, then vanished deeper into the house without a word. Lauren pretended to shiver. "Okay, that's the 3rd time he's materialized without sound. I'm giving him 3 out of 5 Babadooks." By full dark, the woods closed in. Our fairy lights made a little island of gold, but beyond them the trunks stood crowded and black. We told ourselves stories by the fire, dumb stuff, high school legends, and when the flames burned down to coals, we doused them with lake water like good campers. Marcus and Lauren zipped into their tent. Caleb lingered with me on the deck, elbows on knees, shoulders brushing again and again like magnets pretending they weren't. "Tomorrow," he said, "we rent kayaks. Or steal them. I saw a rack by the bathhouse. Or we ask our host politely and knock exactly once," I said, and he laughed, low. Silence settled. A night bird called. Another answered. Somewhere under all that, a faint humming, mechanical, threaded through the dark, steady, buried, like a generator with a blanket thrown over it. I tilted my head. Hear that? He went still. Yeah. That's not the bathhouse pump, is it? We listened, trying to pin its direction. The farmhouse loomed as a darker dark among the trees. From it, a rectangle of light flicked on at ground level, then vanished, as if a door had been opened and shut below the porch. The hum cut out. Caleb's arm found mine. Not dramatic, not protective, just seeking confirmation that someone else had seen it too. I nodded, and felt his breath hitch. What has a door at ground level? He whispered. A cellar, I said. We didn't say basement. We didn't have to. Somewhere inside the farmhouse, something metallic scraped, a slow drag, followed by the unmistakable sound of a lock turning over. Then, as if in answer, our fairy lights dimmed, flared, and steadied. Caleb swallowed. Do we go ask? Tomorrow, I said, though I wasn't sure why tomorrow mattered. In daylight. We stood there until the chill finally got into our wet hair. When we crawled into our separate tents, I lay awake, counting the seconds between hushed footsteps crossing the gravel somewhere near the farmhouse and the soft, deliberate knock that came once, only once, on a door that wasn't ours. I froze, pulse thumping in my ears, counting heartbeats until silence melted back into the susurrus of wind through pine needles. Eventually sleep took me like a trapdoor opening under my thoughts. Saturday morning. Sunlight speared the canvas, turning the tent walls ember. Somewhere outside, Marcus was cursing at a camp stove that wouldn't ignite. I crawled out, hair damp with sweat, and found Caleb already waist deep in the lake, sluicing cold water over his shoulders. He waved me in. I shook my head, coffee first, then noticed the farmhouse. Its shutters now gaped like eyelids pried open. In daylight it looked less gothic, more neglected, peeling paint and warped boards showing gray beneath white. Whitaker stood on the porch railing a clay mug, as if he'd been waiting for an audience. The brim of his straw hat hid his eyes. When he raised the mug in greeting, I spotted deep scratches on his forearm, red against pale skin. He tucked the arm behind his back the instant he saw me looking. Caleb splashed ashore, water dripping off lean muscle, and handed me a flat skipping stone. Breakfast diplomacy? He asked, jerking his chin toward the porch. Knock once, I reminded. Only once, he echoed. Lauren joined, hair up, t-shirt knotted at her waist. I want our host to recommend a hiking loop. And maybe explain the industrial humming you two swear you heard. Whitaker watched our approach, smiled polite but distant. Closer, I saw the scratches were smeared with something dark, almost tarry. Trouble with a raccoon, he said before anyone asked. Persistent little beast. He invited us inside for coffee. The foyer smelled of lavender sachets and chlorine? My nose twitched. A narrow staircase descended behind a half-closed door under the main stairs. A chain lock dangled loose, as if recently unhooked. Caleb caught me staring. He cleared his throat. Mr. Whitaker, does that lead to a wine cellar? Root cellar, Whitaker said smoothly. The lake climate is damp, it keeps produce cool. Yet he stepped between us and the door, casual as a cat blocking a hallway. Marcus, ever the tactless one, pointed at the scratches. That raccoon fight back? Whitaker's smile thinned. Most creatures do, when cornered. In the hush that followed, the same low hum vibrated up through the floorboards, unmistakable now that we were inside. Whitaker's jaw tightened. He set his mug down too hard. Ceramic clacked like a warning. Generator for my freezers, he said. Off-grid complications. Caleb's hand brushed mine. A silent "Are you hearing this?" I nodded, throat dry. Whitaker ushered us out with fresh pastries and wax paper. As the screen door snapped shut behind us, I looked back just in time to see him slide the chain lock through the basement latch and twist the padlock home. The hum didn't stop. The hum didn't stop. We walked the gravel path back to camp with pastries sweating grease through the wax paper, every step vibrating faintly underfoot like the ground itself carried the noise. Caleb tore off a corner of his croissant and muttered, Freezer my ass. Lauren tried to light in the air. Kayak time. I need photos that make me look like I'm one with nature and totally not stuck in a horror B&B. She twirled arms up, but her eyes kept sliding to the farmhouse. The boathouse sat at the far end of the cove, its cedar shingles sagging toward the water. 2 bright blue singles and a scarred red tandem leaned on a rack. We dragged them down the sandy launch. Caleb and I claimed the tandem, Marcus and Lauren each grabbed a single. The lake swallowed the shoreline hush, replacing it with breeze and gull cry. Only when we glided 30 yards out did the hum fade to nothing, the absence so sudden my ears rang. Caleb dipped his paddle, voice low. Tonight we check that basement. I should have said no, should have insisted we call the rental platform, demand relocation, something, but instead I felt adrenaline bloom, warm and illicit. After everyone's asleep. I agreed. We circled the lake's perimeter beneath limestone cliffs streaked orange with iron. Mid-paddle, Caleb's knee brushed mine and stayed. Heat gathered where denim met skin. Under the bright sprawl of sky, it felt impossible that anything bad could reach us. By early afternoon clouds stacked into bruised anvils. Distant thunder rolled like barrels across a dock. We raced the weather, kayaks slicing gray ripples. As we beached them, the first fat drops fell. In the tents, rain hammered canvas until ordinary conversation required shouting. Lightning flashed white through the seams. Each boom was answered by that unbroken underground drone, rising whenever thunder receded, as if competing for attention. Twilight dripped in under the storm's edge. Marcus and Lauren retreated early, spent from paddling and whiskey. Caleb waited until their lantern snapped off, then touched my sleeve. No words, we both reached for ponchos. Wet pine needles squeaked under our shoes as we crossed the clearing. At the farmhouse, every window stared dark. The porch boards flexed, rainwater running in glassy threads. Caleb's light found the chain lock. It hung loose, padlock unlatched. My breath caught. Had Whitaker forgotten, or was he below? We knocked once. Only once. No answer. Caleb's fingers closed around the latch. He eased the door inward. Stale chlorine and cold earth washed over us. The hum roared louder, pulsing like a living throat. We descended, steps narrow and slick, until dirt floor replaced wood. A single bulb burned at the far end, revealing rows of chest freezers, their lids rimmed in frost. Between them, a metal table gleamed wet. On it lay a raccoon, at least what was left of one, its ribcage pried open with surgical retractors, organs removed. Beside the carcass sat a small glass jar labeled in neat fountain pen script, Essence, Trial 18. Behind us the door at the top of the stairs slammed shut. My scream bounced off stone walls as the padlock clicked back into place above. Caleb lunged, taking the steps 2 at a time, but the thick iron hasp was already snapped shut. He shook it once, solid. "Whitaker!" he shouted, fist-thudding the wood. Nothing but the generator's growl answered. I forced air into my lungs, blinking spots from my eyes. The raccoon stared with glassy emptiness. Closer now, I saw needle tracks along its forelegs, each tagged with a date. Trial 18, July 24th. A clipboard lay under the jar. Caleb snatched it up, scanning. Dosage log, extraction volume. Subject viability drops after 48 hours. Larger mammal required. His voice cracked on larger. I swept my light across the freezers. Some were labeled fox, opossum, deer, calf, others bore only numbers. Frost-glazed hair and fur clung to the gasket edges. My stomach pitched. Thunder boomed overhead, rain rattled through vent grates, and for a beat the generator sputtered, lights dimming. In that heartbeat Whitaker's voice drifted down, muffled but clear. It was courteous of you to volunteer. Trial 19 requires freshness. Caleb spun, searching. We get out now. He yanked open a tool chest, scalpels, bone saws, a rust-flecked crowbar. He tossed me the crowbar. My hands trembled so hard the metal rang the floor. I clenched it, willed strength into my grip. Key, I whispered. The skeleton key he gave us, Does yours fit? Caleb's eyes widened. He dug in his pocket, pressing the cold brass into my palm. I climbed, jammed it into the padlock. It slid halfway, caught. I twisted, nothing. Footsteps overhead, slow and deliberate, crossing to the trapdoor. The padlock shuddered, dust rained onto my shoulder. We had seconds. Crowbar the hinge, Caleb hissed, bracing the hasp. I wedged the bar's fork under the lowest hinge and leaned with everything I had. Metal groaned, screws pulling from soft pine. Above, the latch rattled. Whitaker testing it? Or removing it? With a final wrench, the hinge tore free. Caleb shoved. The door jerked open an inch, daylight knifing down. Whitaker's startled curse cut through the gap. Caleb slammed the crowbar into the second hinge, popped it. The door splayed inward, striking Whitaker's shoulder. He stumbled back, a syringe clattering from his hand. We burst onto the porch. Wind whipped rain sideways, but freedom tasted electric. Caleb caught my wrist and we sprinted, boots skidding on slick boards. Behind us, Whitaker roared. You don't understand the science. I can perfect it. Feet pounded after us. We fled toward the tents, toward Lauren and Marcus, toward anything that wasn't that humming tomb. Branches whipped at our faces as we plunged through the rain-slicked trees, lightning turning trunks to white negatives for a heartbeat at a time. Canvas shapes emerged ahead. I screamed their names. Lauren unzipped her flap, eyes wide behind tangled hair. Marcus stumbled out next, half-dressed, brandishing a camping hatchet in one hand and a phone in the other that still showed no signal. He locked us in the basement. Caleb gasped. Animals, experiments, he's coming. As if on cue, Whitaker's silhouette wavered among the birches, lantern bobbing. Return, and no one gets hurt, he called, voice calm, coaxing, like a father asking a stray dog to heel. Marcus lifted the hatchet. Back off! Thunder answered. Whitaker stepped forward, the lantern's glow licked across his face, rain streaking his mustache. In his free hand gleamed the syringe, its barrel already filled with viscous amber. I require only 2 of you. The others may leave. My stomach iced. 2. My gaze snapped to Lauren's terrified face, to Marcus's raised weapon, to Caleb beside me, breath ragged. Not one of us could be surrendered. Caleb's fingers brushed mine, squeezed. Car, he murmured. Keys in my pack. We split, Lauren and I sprinting for the parking area while Caleb and Marcus fanned left to draw Whitaker's focus. Gravel churned under our soles. Behind us, Whitaker shouted, lantern crashing, followed by the metallic clang of the hatchet on something solid. The Subaru waded nose out, rain sluicing over its windshield. I clawed Caleb's pack from the back seat, fingers slipping on nylon. Keys jingled somewhere in the mess of dried bags and granola. Lauren yanked at door handles, locked, and pounded the frame. Hurry! Footfalls pounded up the lane. Whitaker? Caleb? My hands closed on metal, yanked it free. I jammed the fob, the lights blinked. Lauren dove into the passenger seat. I swung behind the wheel. Caleb burst from the tree-lean, arm around Marcus's waist, blood dark on Marcus's thigh. Whitaker charged after them, coat flapping, syringe raised. Engine roared alive. I floored the accelerator. Headlights speared Whitaker. He skidded, eyes wild, then hurled the syringe. It struck the hood and exploded in a blossom of amberglop as the Subaru fishtailed past, mud spraying. We hit the main road doing 50, tires howling, storms swallowing the campsite behind us. We hit the main road doing 50, tires howling, storms swallowing the campsite behind us. Water sheeted across the windshield so thick the wipers could barely punch holes through it. In the back seat, Caleb braced Marcus's leg with a rolled-up towel, voice steady but tight. Pressure, he told Marcus. Stay with me, man. Talk about anything but that hole in your thigh. Marcus gave a strangled laugh. Remember when I said lake trips were boring? Lauren twisted around, hair plastered to her cheeks. You jinxed us, you idiot. Signal bars ghosted on my phone, then vanished. Every curve brought fresh branches down in front of the headlights. The needle crept past 60. A mile marker flashed past, 37 miles to Baxter Falls. Civilization. Hospital. Police. I tasted hope just as the engine coughed. The Subaru lurched, warning lights blooming red across the dash. No, no, no! I eased off the gas. The RPM sagged. Caleb cursed. Amber crap must have clogged the air intake. We coasted around a bend and spotted a single sodium lamp glowing above a shuttered bait shop. I rolled us beneath its halo before the engine died entirely. Rain pinged off the tin awning like buckshot. Marcus groaned. Caleb ripped open the first aid kit, hands slick with rain and blood. "We need real sutures," he muttered. Lauren's gaze flicked to the empty road, then back the way we'd come. "If Whitaker follows." Headlights bloomed in the distance, two pale orbs bobbing through the storm. I killed our interior lights. We watched, breath held, as an old bronze pickup rumbled past without slowing, just a ghost of chrome and exhaust, and disappeared toward Baxter Falls. My knees buckled with relief. Caleb squeezed my shoulder, his touch a live wire. "Not him. We can't stay," I said. "If the truck makes it to town, we flag help." "I'll try the engine," Caleb volunteered. His shirt was soaked and spattered, freckles standing out stark on his jaw. Even now, adrenaline threaded with heat when he looked at me. I popped the hood, steam hissed out, carrying the sharp sweet scent of Whitaker's serum. Caleb wiped it with his sleeve, eyes narrowing. "Lines are gummed but not eaten through. Give me 5 minutes." Thunder cracked. From the woods across the road, something metallic clanged, like a heavy lid snapping shut, and the generator's drone rose faintly under the rain, impossibly far from the farmhouse yet echoing all the same. Lauren whispered, "Tell me that's not." A second clang followed by silence. It felt like the storm itself had taken a breath. I gripped the crowbar still wedged beside the driver's seat. "Whatever that is, we're leaving it behind." Caleb slammed the hood. "Try it now." I turned the key. The engine sputtered, caught. Headlights flared back to life. I met Caleb's eyes and saw the promise there. Survive this, all of us, and figure out what we are later. We rolled onto the highway, accelerating toward Baxter Falls, unaware that the bronze pickup had already reached town, and that Mr. Whitaker, dripping lake water onto the sheriff's vestibule floor, was calmly explaining how 4 trespassers had assaulted him and stolen his property. When we reached Baxter Falls, the downtown strip looked like something out of a travel brochure. White clapboard storefronts, bunting from last month's 4th of July still sagging between lampposts. I skidded to a stop outside the sheriff's office, engine ticking. Marcus limped between Caleb and me, jeans soaked crimson, while Lauren banged on the glass door. A deputy swung it open, hand already hovering over his holster. "Evenin'. Y'all the folks Mr. Whitaker phoned in about?" I blinked rainwater from my lashes. "Phoned in? Claims you broke into his house, vandalized his property, assaulted him." The deputy's gaze dropped to the crowbar in my fist, and the blood streaking Marcus's leg. "Looks pretty bad from where I'm standing." He locked us in a basement full of animal carcasses. Lauren shouted. He stabbed Marcus. The deputy's brows pinched. "Sheriff's hearing Mr. Whitaker now." "Hand over the bar, ma'am." His tone left no room to argue. I surrendered it, pulse hammering. Inside, the lobby smelled of damp carpet and burnt coffee. Mr. Whitaker sat serenely in a metal chair, hat in his lap, arm bandaged where Marcus's hatchet had grazed him. He rose, expression artfully pained. "You poor children. I begged them not to drive in this storm." Caleb stepped forward. "Show them the syringe you threw at us, the serum clogging our car." Whitaker's eyes never left the sheriff, a stout woman with silver hair and the weary poise of someone who's seen too many tourist disputes. "I have no idea what he's talking about," he murmured. The sheriff turned to Marcus. "You need a medic. Let's take care of that first. Deputy, call an ambulance." While the deputy dialed, Caleb reached into his pocket and produced the jar we'd grabbed in the scramble. Essence, trial 18, its lid wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. Open it, he said hoarsely. Smell it. Whitaker's calm cracked. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Sheriff, that's my proprietary tincture. Tincture? Caleb barked a laugh. It's rancid tissue and formalin. Check his basement freezers. The sheriff's gaze moved between us, weighing stories. Thunder rolled, rattling the blinds. Finally she spoke. Mr. Whitaker, we'll secure a warrant. Until then, you'll stay in holding. Deputy, cuff him. Whitaker's face went marble smooth. Sheriff, you're making a grave mistake. But he offered his wrists without struggle, eyes sliding to me, cold promise lingering there like the generator's hum buried under silence. An hour later, the storm had limped eastward, leaving the streets slick and gleaming under amber lamps. An EMT stitched Marcus in the back of the ambulance while Caleb and I stood by the open doors, blankets draped over our shoulders. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, though the night air was warm again. Across the lot, Whitaker watched from behind the mesh of the holding cell window. Even in silhouette I could feel his stare, a weight between my shoulder blades. The sheriff's cruiser kicked up spray as it pulled away. She'd driven 2 deputies back to Whitaker Lakeside Glamping with a warrant in hand. I pictured those freezers swinging open, the harsh light stripping away every genteel lie Whitaker had layered over his operation. The thought should have satisfied me, but unease wormed deeper. What if the generator had been switched off? What if evidence could vanish as neatly as the lights dimming on those fairy strings? Caleb nudged my elbow, voice low. Hey! He can't twist this, not anymore. I tried to answer and found my throat tight. The blanket slipped. He caught it, and without thinking smoothed damp hair from my forehead. The simple touch nearly undid me, shock cracking to reveal what lived beneath, relief so fierce it almost felt like pain, and something softer threading between us, impossibly tender against the night's ugliness. Lauren approached, hands shoved into the pockets of an oversized hoodie. Hospital cleared Marcus for transport in the morning. Sheriff says we can make statements after they process the scene. She hesitated, then added, Deputy thinks Whitaker's been selling essence online as holistic injections, some new black market wellness scam. Marcus let out a humorless laugh from the gurney. Wellness. Love that. A siren dopplered in the distance, fading toward the lake road. I watched its red smear in the sky, then glanced at Caleb. When this is over, I may never book another Airbnb. He smiled, small, crooked, entirely real. Fine by me. Next trip we pitch a tent on public land, no hosts, no basements. Deal, I said, and meant it, because for the first time since Whitaker's door had slammed, the future felt open again, like the lake when the storm broke and the stars returned, and the promise I saw in Caleb's eyes was louder than any buried hum. Caleb squeezed my hand once, then helped the EMT ease Marcus onto a stretcher for the short ride to the clinic. Lauren climbed in beside her boyfriend. I stayed outside, not ready for fluorescent hallways and the scent of disinfectant. The ambulance doors thudded shut, and its engine rumbled off, red lights scrolling across wet pavement. A deputy lingered to give us a ride to the motel. I asked for a minute and drifted toward the edge of the lot, where rain-heavy branches brushed the gutter. Pine needles clung to my shoes, each breath smelled like washed earth and ozone. Across the street, a diner still glowed, neon coffee sign flickering pink. Fatigue made the letters swim. Caleb followed, falling into step as though drawn by the same gravity. We crossed under sputtering lamps and slipped into a booth, the vinyl creaking. Inside, formica tables, pie domes half empty, a lone waitress filing her nails at the counter. She looked up. Kitchen's closed, but I can pour coffee. Please, I said. Caleb nodded. When she left, silence ballooned between us, comfortable, almost luxurious after hours of generator thrum and storm roar. I traced a finger through a puddle of water on the table. Caleb watched, eyes soft. At last he spoke. I kept thinking, when that door slammed, I might never get to tell you I. He broke off, shook his head. Feels crazy saying it now. I felt the words before he found them, a warmth blooming beneath my ribs. Say it anyway. He reached across, callous fingers wrapping mine. I like you, Jenna? More than the casual trip buddy way. It's been building since that stupid raccoon joke. A laugh escaped me, shaky but real. I like you too. Even after basement trauma. His thumb brushed my knuckles like punctuation. The waitress slid mugs between us, the steam curling up, carrying the scent of roasted beans and faint cinnamon. Caleb raised his cup. I mirrored him, an unspoken toast to surviving. A cruiser siren blipped outside, short, urgent. The door swung open. The silver-haired sheriff strode in, uniform damp where rain still dripped off her hat brim. Her expression made the coffee sour on my tongue. Found something you need to see, she said without preamble. Both of you. Caleb set his mug down, eyes narrowing. Evidence? The sheriff's gaze flicked to the window, where dawn's first gray wash seeped behind the diner's blinds. That so-called root cellar goes deeper than the foundation. Concrete tunnel leads under the ridge toward the lake. And Whitaker, he had a spare key in his boot cuffs. He's gone. The words settled like ice shards. Instinctively I gripped Caleb's hand tighter. Gone where? We're tracing footprints to a maintenance shed near the boathouse. Looks like he cached supplies. Deputies are sweeping the woods, but I want first-hand testimony before sunrise in case this turns into a manhunt. Caleb's jaw hardened. Let's go. We slid from the booth. Outside, the air had cooled further, mist coiling off the asphalt. Squad lights strobed at the corner, painting trunks and telephone poles in pulses of red and blue. As we climbed into the cruiser, I looked toward the dark silhouette of forest, toward Blue Heron Lake lying silent beyond, and felt that buried hum return, not in my ears but in my bones, as if the night itself was wired to Whitaker's design and now waited for him to flip the switch. The cruiser growled onto the county road, tires splitting puddles that mirrored the bruised dawn. In the back seat Caleb's knee pressed against mine, a silent promise that whatever waited in those woods we'd face it together. The sheriff radioed ahead, sharp bursts of code. And the reply crackled. Perimeter not yet secure. Prints lead toward Point Mason utility corridor. Repeat, suspect on foot, possibly armed. Armed with what? My mind supplied the glinting syringes, the jarred organs lined up like trophies. I pictured Whitaker threading through underbrush with his lantern hooded, that hum coiling inside him like breath. At the glamping grounds, the scene had transformed, floodlights rigged to cruisers through hard angles across the tents. Deputies moved in pairs, weapons unslung, and yellow tape fluttered around the farmhouse. The cellar door gaped, hinges mangled where the deputies had pried them free. Beyond, the tunnel yawned, a poured concrete throat descending into night sweat coolness. Diesel fumes drifted up, riding an electrical buzz that set my teeth on edge. The sheriff handed us hard hats with headlamps. Stay behind me. If we find Whitaker, you drop flat, clear? We nodded, and she led the way, boots echoing off damp walls. Conduits lined the ceiling. Here and there, Whitaker had spliced and snarled cables feeding the generators idling deeper in. Cardboard boxes lay scattered, labels reading sterile syringes and glucose bags. On a workbench someone had scrawled formulae across butcher paper, each line ending with the same looping signature, W. Overhead, the hum thickened until it felt like we walked through a beehive. A deputy hissed from up the passage. Sheriff, found the lab. We stepped into a chamber carved beneath the lake itself. Water seeped through hairline cracks, dripping onto stainless vats that pulsed with peristaltic pumps. The air reeked of bleach and rot. At the center stood a single hospital gurney, restraints buckled open, dappled with fresh blood. Beside it lay Whitaker's straw hat, crushed into the floor as if stomped in haste. Caleb's fingers linked with mine. He was here minutes ago. Then the lights cut out. The hum stuttered, silenced. In the pitch, Whitaker's voice floated from somewhere ahead, soft, exultant. Trial 19 begins now. Trial 19 begins now. Batteries clicked, headlamps flared, shaky cones carving walls slick with condensation. The sheriff barked. Eyes up! Just as something metallic scraped overhead. I jerked my light upward. Whitaker clung to a catwalk welded into the curved ceiling, one hand gripping a dangling cable, the other clutching a syringe so large it looked surgical. His face was half masked in shadow, but the eyes burned fox bright. He kicked the conduit. Sparks showered. Pumps groaned back to life, red LEDs strobing along vats. The hum returned deeper, doubled, vibrating marrow. Deputies raised sidearms. Whitaker dropped. He landed cat-like on the gurney, knees flexing. Vital rule of chemistry, he hissed. Fresh reagents. He lunged. A deputy fired. The report boomed, deafening. Whitaker rolled under the gurney, bullet whining off steel. He came up on the far side, closer to Caleb and me, syringe poised. I stepped in front of Caleb without thinking, arms wide. My voice cracked. You want fresh? Take me and let the others go. Whitaker's grin bared teeth slick with spit. An offering? Admirable. But compatibility matters. His gaze flicked to Caleb, calculating. Healthy, untainted blood. Better yield. Caleb shoved me behind him. Over my dead. Whitaker sprang. A blur of suspenders and pale shirt. Caleb raised the hard hat like a shield, syringe shattered against it, amber solution splattering. Whitaker howled, staggered back, clutching a severed needle stump protruding from his palm. The sheriff advanced, taser snapping. Electrodes bit Whitaker's chest, volts arced blue. He convulsed, knees knocking, yet somehow tore one probe loose and flung himself toward a service hatch. Metal screamed as he forced it open. Lake water burst through in a cataract, driving everyone back. The chamber floor tilted, icy flood surged around calves' thighs. Tunnels breaching. A deputy shouted, grabbing lab notebooks before they soaked. Caleb caught my wrist. The current tried to spin us. Through the froth I glimpsed Whitaker's hat bobbing, empty. He'd vanished into the black swirl gushing toward a submerged escape pipe. Lights flickered again. Somewhere above, concrete rumbled. Support beams sagging under sudden weight. The sheriff shouted for evacuation. We slogged knee-deep, then waist-deep, toward the corridor, pumps sparking as they shorted. Behind us the vats toppled one by one, metallic whales keening as their contents, half-processed, half-alive slurries, poured into rising water that now reeked of formalin and rot. I gagged, almost slipping. Caleb hauled me upright. Over the roar, his lips brushed my ear. Stay with me. I squeezed back, pulse roaring hotter than the flood. Water climbed to ribs, each step a drag through cold cement soup. Ahead, the deputy's flashlight stabbed the corridor mouth, our way out, when Whitaker's arm shot from the hatch flow, clawing at the deputy's ankle. The deputy went under. Gunfire flashed underwater, dull pops. The beams spun wildly, then winked out. Whitaker erupted in front of us, eyes feral, drenched, blood streaking his cheek where a bullet had grazed. He held a second syringe, plunger already primed, tip glinting crimson from flood-washed gore. Caleb thrust me back. Run! He roared, and met Whitaker head-on, shoulder to chest. They plunged beneath the churning surface together. Into liquid blackout that swallowed the scream in my throat. I lunged after them, icy shock crushing my lungs. The headlamp beam fractured across sediments, catching Caleb thrashing. Whitaker clamped to his back like some leech-white parasite. Syringe gouged for a vein in Caleb's neck, blood ribboned crimson. I kicked, grappled Whitaker's wrist. His fingers were cold iron, sinew standing like cables beneath skin. The plunger depressed, half a dose, amber clouds twisting into the water. Caleb's eyes rolled, limbs seizing. I bit down on Whitaker's hand, copper burst across my tongue, felt tendon give. He shrieked, bubbles, lost grip. Caleb drifted. I wrapped his torso, kicking upward. The tunnel ceiling rushed at us. I slammed Caleb's shoulder against the girder, scrabbled for purchase, found a rusted rung. With one arm I hauled both of us up the collapsing corridor. Behind, Whitaker surfaced, eyes phosphorescent under our flickering lamps. He clawed for the rung, but a surge hammered him sideways, hurling him into a whirl of vat debris. Steel drum crushed his chest. The water folded over and dragged him under. We burst into the main passage. Deputies hauled a rescue rope, braced against the torrent. I jammed Caleb's arms through the loop. They reeled him like a battered fish. A second loop caught me. Concrete trembled, the tunnel giving birth to cracks that spiderwebbed overhead. We tumbled onto gravel beyond the farmhouse, coughing lake mud, dawn washing pink across shredded clouds. Pumps inside groaned their death rattle. A plume of fetid water blasted from the cellar door, carrying medical trays, scalpel flash, shreds of straw hat. Caleb gasped, pupils blown wide, pulse skittering. Injection. What did? I pressed my forehead to his. Half dose. We'll get it out. EMT sprinted, but Caleb's hand caught my wrist first, grip fierce despite the serum still burning his veins. You pulled me back. He rasped. You saved me. Always. I whispered, voice breaking. Behind us, the farmhouse buckled with a wet roar, roof sliding, beams snapping like ribs. Deputies dragged us farther as water surged, swallowing Whitaker's empire in a single heaving gulp, leaving only silence, and the humming ghost of what had thrived below. Deputies herded us toward waiting ambulances, the grass already strewn with medical kits and evidence bags. The hush after the collapse felt wrong, ears ringing for a sound that no longer existed, like missing a heartbeat. Caleb's skin mottled as EMTs slid him onto a gurney, pupils blown black as ink. He fought the oxygen mask long enough to lock eyes with me. Stay, he mouthed. I'm here. I promise, climbing in beside him despite protests. The doors slammed. Sirens flared. As we sped away, dawn peeled gold across treetops, turning raindrops on the windows into beads of fire. Caleb trembled under warm blankets, sweat purling along his hairline. The EMT checked vitals, brow furrowing at the racing pulse. Whatever that junk was, it's hammering his adrenals. Give me numbers, I said, voice steadier than I felt. BP 150/90, heart at 130. Could spike higher. Caleb squeezed my fingers. Feels like lightning in my veins, he whispered. Lightning, I remembered the hum, the electric bite of the cellar. Hang on, I said, brushing damp curls from his brow. Hospital's 10 minutes. Behind us the radios crackled, Unit 3, suspect not recovered. Lake search commencing. My throat tightened. Whitaker might still be out there, waterlogged but alive, the serum turning in his own blood. At Baxter Falls General, fluorescent corridors swallowed us. Doctors pulled Caleb toward trauma. I followed until a nurse blocked my path. We'll stabilize him, please wait. Double doors hissed shut, leaving silence buzzing hotter than sirens. Lauren hurried down the hall, Marcus on crutches, legs stitched and wrapped. Relief hit me like gravity. We folded into a three-way hug, ragged, shaking, alive. Minutes bled into an hour before the doctor returned, surgical mask tugged low. He's stable. Serum was adrenaline-like with animal peptides. His kidneys flushed half already. We'll monitor arrhythmia, but prognosis is good. My knees went soft. Marcus caught me, guiding me to a plastic chair. The doctor added, Police need statements once you're ready. Later, I said. I just need 5 minutes with him. Inside, Caleb lay beneath warm lights, a faint flush on his cheeks. He opened heavy lids when I took his hand. Told you the trip be worth it, he rasped, smile crooked but alive. I laughed, half sobbed, then bent, pressing my forehead to his. Outside, morning larks began to sing, and for the first time since the storm I realized the humming in my head was gone, replaced by his steady heartbeat beneath my palm. I stayed there, counting those beats, slowly tapering now, each one proof the serum's fire was ebbing. Caleb's thumb traced lazy circles against my wrist. Sunlight crept across the sheet, turning the thin cotton gold. For a minute, the entire world was this quiet room, his pulse, my breath. A soft knock broke the spell. The sheriff stepped in, hat tucked under her arm. Her uniform looked fresh, but shadows clung beneath her eyes. How's our patient? On the men? Caleb answered, voice rough but steady. She nodded. Good. I wanted you both to hear this first. Divers recovered Whitaker's generators and a cache of vials from the lake bed. No sign of Whitaker himself, but the current feeds into a spillway. We've alerted every town downstream. Caleb exhaled, long and low. So he could still be out there. Could, she agreed. But half a mile of underground pipe, broken ribs from that drum, survival's unlikely. She hesitated. Unlikely isn't never, though. If you remember anything else, call me. When she left, the room felt larger, emptier. I sank into the chair, elbows on the mattress. Caleb watched me with that half-smile that always made my chest ache. You know, he murmured, if he does crawl out of the river somewhere, I'm booking us a nice, boring hotel. Continental breakfast. Chlorinated pool. Room service? I teased, tracing the 4-line tape to his arm. Only if you share waffles. The intercom crackled overhead, paging a code blue on another floor. Caleb's eyelids dipped, exhaustion finally catching him. I brushed hair from his temple and whispered, Sleep. I'll be right here. He drifted off. I leaned back, letting the morning settle, hospital beeps, cartwheels squeaking down tile, a nurse laughing softly at the station. Yet beneath it all I kept listening, just in case, for a hum that wasn't there. It was almost noon when Lauren slipped in with coffee and an overly sugared muffin. She perched on the windowsill. Marcus is FaceTiming his mom, showing off his heroic wound. I smiled. They discharging him today? Tomorrow. They stitched him good. Lauren's grin faded. You okay? Getting there. I glanced at Caleb, sleeping peacefully. We both are. She followed my gaze, then leaned in, eyes bright. I knew it. Took a murderous mad scientist Airbnb to get you two together, but hey, whatever works. I snorted, muffling laughter so I wouldn't wake him. A gentle warmth spread through my ribs, something stubborn and alive. For the first time in days, the future felt reachable, threaded with impossible, ordinary possibilities, slow road trips, cheap motels, coffee at sunrise untainted by fear. Out in the hallway a maintenance cart rattled past, its wheels making a faint, syncopated thrum. I tensed, then forced my shoulders down. Just a cart, I told myself. Just a hospital morning. Still, my fingers reflex tightened around Caleb's. Because unlikely wasn't never, and monsters sometimes wore a polite smile and suspenders. But so did love, unassuming, steadfast, unexpected. And this time, love had the stronger pulse. I stayed with Caleb until late afternoon, drifting in and out of a light doze while machines whispered their steady confirmations that he was healing. When visiting hours ended, a nurse with an apologetic smile eased me toward the hallway. Lauren waylaid me outside with a denim jacket and a bottled iced tea. Fresh air? She suggested. I nodded, and we navigated the quiet corridors to a courtyard where storm-shattered clouds were finally dissolving into deep indigo. The lawn smelled of warm earth and cut grass, that nostalgic summer scent that makes childhood feel one inhalation away. We found a bench beneath a sweet gum tree dripping with raindrops. For a long time neither of us spoke. A distant helicopter thumped overhead, the sound shrinking into the dark. Eventually Lauren said, Deputy told me they traced Whitaker's shipments to half a dozen states. Wellness spas, anti-aging clinics, the works. I rubbed my arms. And none of them asked questions. People see a stamp that says all natural and turn off their brains. Lightning bugs winked into existence between shrubs. One settled on my sleeve, its green glow pulsing, on, off, like a gentle heartbeat. I watched it drift skyward. Jenna, Lauren said softly. What happens now? I thought of the lake at dawn, mist curling off black water, of the farmhouse collapsing like a rotted lung. I thought of Caleb's hand finding mine in the ambulance. We testify, I answered. We recover. And then, maybe, we plan another trip? Somewhere with a cabin we can actually trust. Lauren's laugh was tired but genuine. No basements allowed. No basements, I agreed. Above us, evening stars flickered out, timid at first, then brighter. Somewhere beyond those points of light, the world spun on, vast and indifferent. Yet here, in this small courtyard in Baxter Falls, I felt the axis tilt ever so slightly toward hope. And I decided that when Caleb woke in the morning, I would tell him so. I slept in a plastic chair beside Caleb's bed, head tipped back against the wall. Sometime between the nurse's 3 a.m. vitals check and first light, dreamless dark gave way to pale dawn seeping through blinds. I opened gritty eyes to find Caleb already watching me, a sleepy half-smile curving his mouth. "Morning," he whispered, voice still husky from intubation tape. "Morning," I echoed, scooting closer so the metal legs squeaked. "How's the lightning?" "Static's gone." He flexed his fingers, surprised by their steadiness. "Feel like I ran a marathon, but better than being a science project." Relief flooded so hard my eyes burned. I leaned in, brushed a kiss against his forehead, testing, tender. He tipped his head, catching my lips softly, lingering just long enough to make my pulse stutter. Pulling back, he asked, "Did we get the waffles yet?" I laughed, the sound soft in the sterile hush. "Waffles pending doctor approval." Caleb's gaze drifted to the window. Pink dawn edged the sky. He swallowed. "Tell me they found him." "No body. But the sheriff's got state police dredging the spillway." I squeezed his hand. "He's not coming back." A knock interrupted. The silver-haired sheriff stepped in with 2 detectives in plain clothes. "Sorry to wake the patients," she said, though we were both clearly awake. "Mind if we ask follow UPS while memories are fresh?" Caleb nodded, so I slid my chair aside to give them space. They recorded Caleb's account, Whitaker's leap, the syringe, the struggle underwater. When they were done, the sheriff closed her notebook. "Forensic divers recovered 3 more vials downstream an hour ago, sealed in waterproof tubes. Tests show the same protein signatures. Whitaker's fingerprints on the caps. Which means," one detective said gently, "even if he's missing, every clinic that bought his product is now evidence. He can't hide forever." They thanked us and left. Caleb rested back, eyes following the sunrise. The blinds cast striped shadows across his cheekbones. "When I signed up for glamping," he murmured, "I imagined mores, maybe skinny dipping, not criminal conspiracies. Next time choose your Airbnb by host ratings, not aesthetics." I teased. "Next time," he said, eyes shining, "I'll pick a spot with no host at all. Just you, me, and honest starlight." I threaded our fingers together. "I'd like that." Footsteps approached, Lauren with a tray balancing 2 cafeteria waffles drowning in syrup. "Doctor avoided me, so I considered that approval," she announced, setting them on Caleb's overbed table. "Marcus'll be in soon, he's turned the waiting lounge into his personal fan club." She winked at me, then left us to the feast. Caleb cut a syrup-soaked square, offered it to my lips. Sweetness burst across my tongue, warm and simple. The intercom chimed overhead, security to main entrance. We ignored it, lost in small miracles of breakfast and stolen glances, each second stitching over the rips Whitaker had torn. Outside, the city came alive, truck engines, bicycle bells, the hum of ordinary life. It drowned out any lingering phantom of generators and tunnels. And in that mundane music, I felt the first true note of peace, the pulse of possibility, steady as a heartbeat, alive as sunrise. A muted thump echoed in the hallway, some cart hitting a door jamb, and Caleb flinched, syrup-flecked fork pausing midair. I caught his gaze, saw how the sound reverberated deeper than noise. Before I could speak, he exhaled, shoulders loosening. "Reflex," he said. "Getting better. Waffles are therapeutic," I answered, sliding the tray closer. Marcus hobbled in, crutches squeaking, a novelty Baxter Falls police ball cap perched backward on his head. "Ladies and gents, turns out glamping injuries earned you free merch." He tossed the cap onto Caleb's lap, then propped himself against the sill. Fresh stitches puckered his thigh through a slit in the hospital gown, but the swagger was back. Detectives say our testimonies broke the case wide open. They're calling it the Whitaker Wellness Ring. A beat. Told them we prefer basement of bad vibes. Lauren slipped behind him, holding a folded newspaper, front page photo of the collapsed farmhouse, blue lights strobing on floodwater. The headline read Local Host Vanishes. Illegal serum operation exposed. Beneath it, a grainy insert of Whitaker, bout-eyed, unsmiling, looked out like something preserved behind museum glass. Caleb traced the caption, brow furrowing. They still framing it as an accidental drowning? For now, Lauren said. But they've frozen his accounts. So even if he surfaces, he's got nothing. I shivered at if. Marcus flipped the paper shut. Enough villain airtime. Nurse says you're discharged tomorrow, hero. We booked adjacent motel rooms, king beds, 0 basements. Caleb smirked. Does it have waffles? Belgian, make your own. Marcus winked. A comfortable hush settled. Sun slanted warm across antiseptic floors. Somewhere a radio played tinny 70s soul. Caleb caught my hand beneath the sheet, thumb skating slow circles on my palm. After the motel? He murmured, low enough only I could hear. Let's find a cabin with a roof deck, watch proceedings, no lanterns, no syringes. I leaned in, heart steady now. And if we can't trust cabins? Then a tent on an open hill, he said. Stars are the best ceiling anyway. Outside, wind rattled the window screen. Ordinary wind, not storm-driven, not humming with buried machines. I let the sound fill me, let it mark the line where nightmare stopped and living started again. And right there, in that bright sterile room thick with waffle scent and friendship banter, I knew we'd keep walking forward, one sunrise, one heartbeat, at a time. Caleb was snoring softly by the time dusk painted lavender stripes across the blinds. I slipped into the corridor for coffee and found the nurses clustering around the ward TV. A reporter stood beside the spillway, search boats churning behind her. Authorities confirm a man's boot matching Whitaker's size was recovered 2 miles downstream, but divers suspended operations at nightfall. Residents are advised to remain vigilant. Eyes prickling, I returned to the room. Caleb stirred as I eased into the chair. Bad news? Just boots, I said, trying for light. He's still a ghost. Caleb's hand threaded through mine. Ghosts fade. Discharge day. Paperwork rustled like dry leaves while Caleb, now in borrowed sweats and hospital socks, tested his balance. His freckles stood out against the lingering pallor, but the wild pulse was gone. Nurse Ramirez handed over antibiotics and a warning. If the tremors return, come back immediately. Marcus and Lauren met us at reception with a second-hand sedan they'd rented from a mechanic who owed the sheriff. The back seat overflowed with thrift store blankets and take-out containers. Comfort clamor. Lauren tossed Caleb a baseball cap. Disguised superhero. We rolled out of Baxter Falls, twilight trailing pink banners overhead. The motel emerged, a squat U-shape of teal doors and buzzing neon, Skyline Lodge, color TV and AC. Room 12 smelled of lemon cleanser and nostalgia. I helped Caleb lower onto the firm mattress, then cracked the window to let in cricket song. Marcus appeared with a grocery bag. Dinner is instant ramen and gas station donuts. 5 stars. We ate cross-legged on the carpet, laughter echoing in the vinyl-tiled bathroom. Later, Marcus and Lauren retreated next door, promising early waffles. I shut the connecting door, leaving only lamplight pooling gold across faded quilts. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed, eyes on the moonlit parking lot. Every shadow feels like him. I closed the drapes, then knelt, hands on his knees. Shadows don't win. We've got waffles and lawyers in each other. He chuckled, a raw sound easing into warmth, then tugged me up beside him. Our kiss tasted faintly of donut glaze and something sweeter, relief laced with want. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. Stay? Always. I thumbed off the lamp, the dark settled gentle as flannel. Outside, a semi rumbled past on the highway, its noise receding until quiet wrapped the room. Caleb's breathing evened, steady under my palm. I lay awake a while longer, listening, guarding that rhythm, one sunrise promised, one heartbeat earned. Rain returned in the small hours, a soft hiss on the motel roof that blurred into my half-dreams. I must have dozed, because a sudden thud jarred me upright, something striking the metal railing outside. Caleb stirred but didn't wake. I slipped from bed, padded to the window, lifting the edge of the curtain just enough to peek through. Parking lot lights cast cones of watery orange. Wind rattled the soda machine beside the stairwell, its tin roof pinging loose screws, probably the noise I'd heard. I exhaled, tension seeping. Then I spotted a darker shape near the dumpster, a man hunched, rummaging in a duffel. For one awful heartbeat I saw suspenders, a straw hat, ghost image imprinted on my nerves. But the hat was a baseball cap, the man just a random traveler pitching trash bags. I let the curtain fall, heart hammering wild but slowly calming. When I turned, Caleb was propped on an elbow watching me. "Nightmare?" he whispered, voice fuzzy with sleep. "Stranger at the dumpster," I murmured, crawling back under blankets. "False alarm." He pulled me close, warmth blotting the last chill. "We'll get used to normal sounds again," he promised against my hair. I closed my eyes to the rhythm of his breathing and the steady drip outside, finally letting sleep take me. Dawn at Skyline Lodge. Morning light filtered through moth-eaten curtains, carrying the smell of brewing coffee from the lobby. Caleb stretched, winced, then smiled when I handed him a painkiller with bottled water. We dressed and shuffled to the breakfast nook where Marcus was mid-waffle, syrup mustache gleaming. Lauren waved from the toaster. "News report," Marcus said around a mouthful. "Divers found Whitaker's medical bag downstream. Still no body." Lauren tapped her phone, showing a headline, "Sheriff calls official search at dusk today." She met my gaze. "Closure or not, town's ready to move on." I thought of the farmhouse sinking beneath the lake, tunnels collapsing, and felt a knot loosen. "So are we," I said. We checked out by 10, thanking the night clerk who'd slipped stress balls into our key packet. "Restorative therapy." He'd winked. Outside, clouds broke open to reveal crisp blue, the first true summer morning since our trip began. We stood by the sedan's open doors, where the map app suggested two possible routes home: the interstate through industrial sprawl, or a scenic byway hugging mountain ridges. Caleb nudged me. "Scenic," he murmured. "Fresh air, no crowds." Marcus groaned, theatrical. "Fine, but if another killer host appears, I'm retiring to video games." We piled in, engine humming like a docile beast. As we left Baxter Falls, a sign flashed by, "Thank you for visiting, see you soon." I caught Caleb's reflection in the side mirror, sunlight sparking his freckles, and felt something shift from surviving to living again. 30 miles out, the road curved around Lake Sycamore. We pulled over on a gravel turnout brimming with wild lupin. The water lay calm, all mirrored sky and lazy rings from dragonflies skating the surface. No generators, no humming, just wind rattling reeds. Caleb limped down to the shoreline, shoes crunching pebbles. I followed, and when he reached for my hand, the simple gesture felt revolutionary. We stood silent, letting the lake write silver patterns against our shadows. Behind us, Marcus rummaged for a camera, already narrating a mock travel vlog, while Lauren threw wildflowers at his head. Their laughter floated bright through the air, carrying away the last scraps of cellar darkness. Caleb turned to me, eyes reflecting sky. "This spot," he said, "would be perfect for that tent on a hill." I looked around, rolling grass, a gentle slope, horizon clean as a promise, and nodded. "Next July?" I asked. "Or sooner?" He slid an arm around my waist, drawing me close. Now the lake's hush felt like applause, wind lifting loose strands of my hair. For a moment, the memory of Whitaker flickered, muddy boots, shattered syringe, but it faded beneath birdsong and the warmth of Caleb's side against mine. The world was wide again, unspooled before us like the ribbon of road waiting just beyond the lupins. "We keep moving forward," I whispered. "Together," he said, and kissed me under the open sky, the water a shining witness, the hum of old horrors finally drowned by the quiet miracle of being alive. Together, he said, and kissed me under the open sky, the water a shining witness, the hum of old horrors finally drowned by the quiet miracle of being alive. The gravel turnout grew warmer beneath the sun, the lupin scent drifting higher as bees began their midday ballet. Caleb eased back, thumb brushing my cheekbone, and I felt the faint tremor still lingering in his hand, a reminder of what we'd traded for this quiet. Behind us, Marcus snapped a photo, framing us against the sweep of lake and slope. He lowered the camera with a grin. Scrapbook cover. Title it How We Spent Our Almost Vacation. Lauren rolled her eyes, but her smile carried real light. Let's hit the byway before you two start collecting wildflowers for the wedding bouquet. We piled in again, and Caleb chose music, classic rock drifting soft under half-open windows. The car threaded mountain curves, each turn revealing new vistas, granite bluffs slashed by birch, meadows shimmering with Indian paintbrush. The road felt endless in the best way, unspooling possibility. By early afternoon we crested a ridge where a weather-bleached sign welcomed us to Pine Hollow State Park. A spur road led to a visitor center advertising hot coffee and local honey. Marcus lobbied hard for a pit stop. His stitches ached, he claimed, and we relented. Inside, the lobby smelled of cedar and maple sap candles. A ranger with sun-creased eyes stamped trail maps. Caleb bought 2 enamel mugs printed with constellations. For the next trip, he said, and his smile made my chest ache in a good way. At a bulletin board, Lauren tapped a flyer fluttering under thumbtacks. Astronomy night. Perseid meteor shower. August 12th, Sky Ridge overlook. Camping permits available. She raised her brows at us. I glanced at Caleb. He nodded like the decision had already been made back on the lakeshore. We filled out a reservation form right there, the ranger handing us a permit tag with a grin. Best seat in the house for falling stars, he said. Back on the road, permit pinned to the visor, my phone buzzed. A text from Sheriff Dawson, search suspended. Pathologist confirms Whitaker's blood on debris matches sample from vials. Case will move to indictment. Victim support resources available, please call. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Caleb read the message over my shoulder, then squeezed my knee gently. Ghosts fade, he echoed. We drove until shadows stretched long and the sky bruised violet. Marcus navigated us to a roadside diner shaped like a silver bullet. We claimed a booth sticky with nostalgia and ordered milkshakes the size of small planets. Caleb's appetite still lagged, but he managed half a BLT and fries, color creeping higher in his cheeks. Afterward, we checked into a mom-and-pop motor court, tiny cottages painted mint green, each with its own Adirondack chairs. Marcus and Lauren disappeared into theirs, conspiring with a deck of cards and a six-pack. Caleb and I settled into the next cabin. It smelled of pine sol and old quilts, the wallpaper faded to ghost roses. On the porch, crickets stitched a steady chorus. Caleb stretched gingerly on the swing, head tipped back to watch early stars. I nestled beside him, the swing's chains creaking lullaby rhythms. Feels like the first moment I've taken a full breath since the yurt, he murmured. I listened to the night, no generators, no metallic tapping, just the faint hum of highway far off, benign as a heartbeat. Same, I whispered. We felt quiet until the moon edged over the tree-line, a pale coin. Caleb broke the silence. When we give testimony, I want to ask the prosecutor if some restitution fund can rehabilitate Whitaker's animals. The ones still alive. They'll need sanctuaries, I agreed. We can push for it. The thought of those creatures, trial numbers instead of names, tightened my chest, but Caleb's conviction steadied me. The swing drifted to a stop. He turned, expression open and earnest. I used to think adventures were about adrenaline highs. Now I think they're about who's beside you when the road deserves a story. Heat flushed my skin. So let's write better chapters. He leaned in, the porch light catching the tilt of his smile, and when we kissed, it tasted not of survival but of beginning. The night folded around us, wide and starlit, and for the first time I believed utterly in tomorrow. I woke to an insistent knocking. The porch light had sputtered out some time after midnight, leaving the cabin interior washed only in moongray. For a disoriented second I thought I dreamed the sound, just rain starting again, or the echo of Whitaker's one-knock rule replaying in my skull. But it came again, sharper, 3 quick taps on wood. Caleb stirred beside me. "What time?" His voice was thick with sleep. I slid from the quilt, feet landing on cold hardwood. The cabin clock read 2:14 a.m. Another knock, this time accompanied by a whisper, too low to decipher. Caleb swung his legs over the side, wincing as stitches pulled. "Stay back," he muttered, grabbing the flashlight from the nightstand. The door had no peephole, only a flimsy chain. I eased it open the width of a palm. Pale lamplight from the parking lot stretched long shadows across the gravel. Shadows belonging to Lauren, barefoot in a flannel shirt, hair wild. "Jenna," she hissed, eyes saucer-wide. "Marcus is gone." The chain rattled free. We stepped onto the porch. Night insects hummed loud enough to feel like static. "What do you mean gone?" Caleb asked. "He went to grab sodas from the vending machine 10 minutes ago." She hugged her arms. "I thought he was taking forever, then I heard a car engine and looked out. The machine light was off, the lot empty." I scanned the row of cabins. All doors shut, curtains drawn. Farther down, the vending shed squatted under broken neon, dark as a mouth. Caleb handed me the flashlight, then fetched the crowbar we now carried like a talisman. "Let's find him." We crossed crunching gravel, each footstep echoing louder than it should. A soda can rolled lazily under the shed's overhang, still fizzing from a dent. Lauren knelt, fingers trembling as she picked it up. "He paid, he was right here." I swung the light in a slow arc. Tire tracks scrawled fresh grooves toward the highway, too muddy for the byway's usual dust. My pulse spiked. "Marcus doesn't wander barefoot into strangers' cars," I whispered. Caleb's jaw clenched. "He doesn't, but someone might force him." He glanced down at the crowbar. "Get the ranger on the phone, 911 anyone." Lauren dashed back toward reception. Caleb and I followed the tracks to the shoulder where they vanished onto asphalt. A single set of footprints, bare, limping, led from the vending shed to the passenger side of wherever the car had idled. Blood spotted one print where his stitches must have torn. Headlights crested a distant rise, momentarily silhouetting us. For a breath, the terror felt impossible all over again. But the vehicle passed without slowing, taillights shrinking into black. Caleb exhaled. "Could be a prank, could be." "Whitaker," I finished, the name tasting like rust. The search had ended, the tension had faded, but unlikely wasn't never. Behind us, the cabin doors started clacking open as other guests peered out, drawn by Lauren's calls for help. Somewhere a phone rang, then another. Sirens were a long way off, but in my head they were already screaming. I wrapped my fingers tighter around the flashlight, beam trembling across empty road, and felt the fragile piece we'd stitched together tear along a fresh seam. The flash of patrol car strobes broke over the ridge 15 minutes later, red and blue slicing the cedar trunks like a silent alarm. Caleb and I stood in the ditch with the ranger, pointing out the muddy tire grooves. Lauren paced behind us, hoodie sleeves darkening where she'd wiped tears. Deputy Vargas, square-jawed, flashlight clenched between teeth, knelt to photograph Marcus's bloody print. "Treads are fresh. Radials, maybe a pickup. Angle of pullout says driver accelerated hard." He straightened. "No security cams out here. Closest feed's a mile north at the state park gate." Caleb's fingers lingered at the crook of my elbow, an anchor. "We can get there in 5, he said. "Make it 3, Vargas answered, already beaconing us toward his cruiser. Lauren climbed in front beside the ranger. Caleb and I squeezed into the back, radio chatter crackling overhead. As we tore up the byway, the forest pressed close, throwing back the flashing lights in quicksilver bursts. I tasted copper, fear sharpening every breath. Unit 12, be advised, dispatch crackled. Gate cam shows older model Brown's pickup heading southbound at 2:11. Plate obscured. Brown's pickup. My mind painted Whitaker's truck skimming through rain days earlier. Caleb caught my eye, silent confirmation. Vargas floored it. Gravel spit from the wheel wells. The cruiser's speedometer climbed. Trees fell away to reveal a stretch of lakeshore road hemmed by reeds. Moonlight silvered the surface, except where a pair of taillights floated 30 yards offshore, half submerged, idling in the shallows. Jesus! Lauren breathed. The bronze truck's rear tires spun, churning water that flashed red under its brake lamps. Something heavy shifted in the bed, Marcus, wrists bound, struggling upright. His muffled shout carried thin across the lake. On the far bank, a figure in drenched clothes slogged up to the driver's door, a shape too lean to be Whitaker. As the cab window rolled down, a flash of a pale, straw-lined hat appeared before the interior light snapped off. Vargas yanked the shotgun from its rack. "Stay in the car," he barked, slamming out into knee-deep flood grass. The ranger followed, service pistol drawn. Caleb reached for the door. I caught his hand. "Let them," I pleaded. Across the water, the truck lurched forward, engine howling. Its headlights speared the reeds, carving a path toward open lake, like a coffin on wheels. Marcus thrashed harder, nearly toppling over the tailgate. Vargas fired a warning round. The boom echoed. The truck kept going. Instinct overruled terror. Caleb and I bolted from the cruiser, sprinting down the embankment. Cold water swallowed calves' thighs. Lauren's scream knifed the night. "Marcus! Hold on!" The driver's silhouette twisted, as if noticing us for the first time. The straw hat bobbed. A second shape surfaced beside the truck, a tarp-wrapped barrel shoved overboard. It sank with a heavy glug, oily ripples blooming. Caleb dove forward, water chest high, pushing through cattails. I followed, heart jackhammering. Every step sucked mud, but adrenaline flung me onward. A spotlight blazed, the ranger's mag light locking on Marcus. The ropes binding him glistened black, knots already slipping in lake water. Caleb reached the tailgate, muscles straining as he heaved himself up. Gunfire snapped, Vargas targeting the front tire. Rubber exploded, the truck slewed sideways, stalling in hip-deep water. I grabbed the rope, sawing at it with the crowbar's forked claw. Fibers frayed, then parted. Marcus collapsed into Caleb's arms, breath hitching with pain. "He's in the cab," Marcus rasped. "Drugged me, barrels full of—" His head lolled. We dragged him toward shore as Vargas waded past, shotgun leveled. The cab door burst open, the straw hat floated free, bobbing atop the waves, empty. Only the breeze answered. Whoever had driven was gone, slipped under or vanished into reeds. Behind us, blue lights strobed across a scene of trembling grass, heaving breath, and the guttural whine of an engine dying in dark water. And beneath it all, I swore I felt the faintest vibration, the ghost of a hum receding into the depths. Vargas reached the driver's window in 2 strides, yanked it wider, and swept the flashlight inside. The beam lit an empty seat, keys still swinging from the ignition. Lake water sloshed around the pedals, carrying shards of broken glass and a few pale feathers that drifted out like ghosts. "Not a soul," he muttered, breath frosting in the beam. "Must have bailed the second we fired." He kicked the door shut, gaze hunting the moonslick reeds. "Find him before he finds ground." Caleb and I half carried, half floated Marcus to the embankment. Lauren waded in, sobbing with relief, and cupped Marcus's face. He winced, lucid enough to mumble, "You should have seen my getaway attempt, Oscar-worthy." I pressed a towel, someone's emergency blanket, against the slit in his stitches while Caleb steadied his shoulders. Sirens wailed nearer. Backup lights flickered through the tree-line, splattering color across the shallows. Vargas radioed coordinates, then pointed to the barrel bobbing 10 yards away. "Ranger, secure that drum. Get hazmat once daylight hits." The ranger slogged through weeds, hooking the rim with a grappling pole. I glimpsed something inside, animal crates stacked tight, eyes gleaming through slats, fox, raccoon, opossum, all breathing, alive. The barrel wasn't a tomb, it was a twisted arc. Marcus shivered. He said, "Biggest extraction yet. Needed subjects plus a live donor." Caleb's jaw set. So Whitaker found an accomplice. Maybe two. Water rippled near the bank, cattails parting as if something large slid beneath. Flashlights converged, nothing. Just silt curling upward. Deputies formed a perimeter, sweep lights carving the reeds. Dogs would arrive soon, divers at dawn. Yet I couldn't shake the certainty that Whitaker, drowned or not, had threaded another escape route beneath us, the hum simply slipping into deeper channels. Paramedics ferried Marcus onto a stretcher, Lauren pacing at his side. Caleb squeezed my hand, eyes hooded with exhaustion and fierce resolve. "We keep going," he said under his breath. "Until there's nowhere left for him to dig." I nodded, though night stretched endless beyond the beams. Because unlikely was still not never, and monsters, real monsters, rarely stayed buried. But neither did we break. Not anymore. The lake lapped against the stranded truck, slow and deliberate, as if erasing its tracks one ripple at a time while the first pale smear of dawn bled across the eastern sky. The rising light crept over the water, gray turning to opal, then soft gold. Deputies' radios crackled, voices low and urgent, but the hum of night things was gone, replaced by the hush that follows storm or death. I watched the reeds shiver as a heron lifted, wings sluicing silver droplets. For a moment everything felt painfully normal. Then a diver surfaced near the submerged truck, mask gleaming. He signaled to shore and slid something onto a float bag, a muddy leather satchel stamped WW in dull brass. The sheriff knelt on the embankment, untying the flap with gloved hands. Inside lay a notebook warped from water, a pocket recorder sealed in a plastic sleeve, and 3 vials of the amber serum, each capped, labeled Trial 20, human. Caleb's fingers tightened around mine. 20, he murmured. He was planning this long before us. Paramedics edged Marcus into the ambulance. Lauren climbed in, never letting go of his hand. The doors closed, sirens rose, and they sped toward the highway, taillights fading in dawn haze. Seeing them leave lifted something heavy from my ribs. Marcus was safe, at least for now. The sheriff snapped evidence bags shut and strode over. "We traced vehicle VIN to a salvage yard 2 counties south, purchased cash by an alias 3 weeks ago." She scanned the lake, jaw set. "We'll search every covert, every fishing shack. But if Whitaker planned this, he may already have an exfil point." Caleb rubbed the fading bruise on his neck. "He can't run forever. He's injured and he lost the serum. Desperate men make mistakes." She tucked the satchel under her arm. "Get warm, both of you." Statements later. We trudged back to the patrol car as the sun cleared treetops, turning the lake's surface to hammered copper. In the seat, with the heater blasting, I let exhaustion finally settle. Caleb leaned his head back, lashes casting crescents on his cheeks. "Did we just survive the sequel?" he asked, voice rasping. I forced a smile. "Let's hope franchises aren't his thing." He chuckled, then reached across the console, lacing our fingers. Outside, officers moved like chess pieces across the marsh, dogs baying farther along the bank. Every so often a bullhorn barked Whitaker's name, echoing uselessly over water. Caleb closed his eyes, breathing steady. I watched the search unfold until the windows fogged, obscuring flashing lights and silhouetted figures. My reflection merged with his behind misted glass, 2 shapes pressed close against the cold. And for the first time since that quiet lakefront yurt, I thought, whatever darkness still waited, we would face it together. Beat by beat, sunrise by hard-won sunrise, until the last echo of that basement hum faded to nothing but memory. 6 weeks later, Sky Ridge Overlook. The Perseids blazed overhead like molten clockwork, each streak a hot pin across the black canvas of August. A fire crackled low beside our tent, the enamel mugs Caleb bought now steaming with cocoa. Somewhere down the meadow, Marcus and Lauren coached a group of novice stargazers through their first wishes, His leg healed enough that he only limped when he forgot. 6 weeks. 42 noisy, relentless days since the lake rescue, filled with statements and sworn affidavits, with newspaper cameras and trauma counselors. The search for Whitaker went on, widening to rivers and abandoned barns, but turned up only rumors. The satchel of trial 20 vials became the state lab's obsession. Experts still parsed its genome threads, hunting the key to undoing Whitaker's twisted alchemy. In the meantime, Caleb and I built new routines around quieter things: physical therapy in the mornings, volunteering afternoons at the wildlife rehab center that took in Whitaker's surviving animals. We'd learned to feed fox kits with pipettes, to coax trembling possums out of burlap sacks. It felt like stitching color back into a torn world, one small life at a time. Now, beneath more stars than I knew names for, the world finally felt still. Caleb lay on the blanket, hands pillowing his head, freckles turned silver by starlight. "Count any yet?" he asked. 17 so far, I said, nudging his boot with mine. "I'm saving my wish." He rolled onto an elbow, the firelight catching the faint scar at his throat where Whitaker's syringe had grazed. "Same wish as mine?" "Probably." We shared a smile that tasted of pine smoke and promise. A hush fell, just wind brushing Lupin, crickets drumming. Then footsteps crunched behind us. I tensed, instinct flaring, but it was the sheriff, out of uniform tonight yet familiar in profile. She settled on a log, gazed skyward. "Didn't mean to startle," she murmured. "I was passing the ranger station, thought I'd drop by." Caleb sat up. "Any news?" She exhaled, a white plume in the cool high air. "Body turned up this morning near the spillway delta, waterlogged, tangled in roots. Dental records just confirmed, Whitaker." Silence rippled outward, as if even the meadow paused. My pulse thudded once, then eased, the final thread cut. Caleb's shoulders sagged. I reached for his hand, feeling tension bleed away I hadn't known I still carried. The sheriff brushed pine needles from her jeans. "Thought you deserved to hear before the press." She rose, nodding toward the heavens. "Beautiful night for closure. Enjoy it." When her flashlight bobbed out of sight, Caleb stared at the fire, expression unreadable. I squeezed his fingers. "It's over." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he tipped his head back to the meteors. One flared bright, a long, bright arc that lingered before winking out. "Okay," he whispered finally. "Wish made. What was it?" He turned to me, eyes reflecting ember gold. "That this moment lasts. That nothing chases us anymore, except maybe sunrise." Emotion punched the back of my throat. I leaned in, kissing him gently. Sparks from the fire whirled up like tiny comets, and the night breathed around us, whole and harmless. Across the field, Marcus whooped. A meteor exploded in a silent burst of green. Lauren's laughter carried on the wind, light and unbroken. I closed my eyes, felt Caleb's heartbeat under my palm, steady, alive, unhurried, and made my own wish, that every pulse forward would be ours to choose, unharmed by darkness, as endless and bright as falling stars.